Yes, sir. I would like to remove item 3B3.
Second.
Okay, we're going to remove item 3B3, the temporary sidewalk waiver agreement.
Okay, that'll come up as item 12D.
12D, okay. Do we have a motion? Mr. Preister?
I will move to approve the consent agenda with the one deletion.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Preister, seconded by Mr. Burns. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. I vote yes.
All voted yes.
Item number 4, approval of claims, is under the consent. Item number 5, special presentations.
Item A is the trails have our respect, a proposal for a bike trail in Swanson Park. You come this way, Paul, so you can see.
All right. My name is Kent McNeil, and thank you to the council and even to the mayor in her absence for giving me time to present this quickly to you this evening. My name is Kent McNeil. I'm a Bellevue resident, and I'm in here on behalf of Trails Have Our Respect, which is a local nonprofit trail organization that designs, builds, and maintains trails within 2 of parks within the city of Bellevue. And so I wanted to just kind of propose to you what we would like to do at Swanson Park as we go forward into making it into a full bike park. So what does that mean? Well, good questions, and then some of this information I sent to you prior to tonight's meeting, so you'd have some more background. But mountain bike tourism is becoming a really good thing for communities. It's bringing in a lot of economic dollars for tourism as well, and it's something that Bellevue has a kind of a hidden treasure that a lot of people don't know about in Jewel and Swanson Park. And those of us that have been spending years building the trails know that there's something here, and we want to make it better, and in doing so, be able to promote healthy, active lifestyles for all ages in the community, as well as build features into the park that don't exist that help us with our kids' programming that already exists and is actually going on tonight at Swanson Park. So I'll kind of go down. As I said, Bellevue is home to 2 of Nebraska's top mountain bike trails, Swanson Park and Jewel Park. Jewel's been voted the #1 mountain bike trail in the state of Nebraska. So a lot of people aren't aware of that. But Swanson Park is the home of Omaha Devo, which is our local youth skills program where we teach kids the skill to ride mountain bikes off-road. It's in its 7th year, and we currently have a waiting list of kids who want to participate, and we're hoping to continue to be able to grow as the facilities grow with us. Swanson Park is also home of the Nebraska State Championship Mountain Bike Series, State Cyclocross Championship course. There's mountain bike camps that are taught there throughout the year by R&R Outdoors for adults, teaching them how to ride mountain bikes safely. And it's also home of the Nebraska High School League competitions that happen there as well. So there's a lot that goes on at that park, and I thought it'd be important just to kind of go over that quickly, just so you have a little bit of the background. As I said, our main push forward on this and why I think it's a great thing for Bellevue is the economic impacts of outdoor recreation. And as we continue to develop Swanson Park, if we choose to do so in this manner, there's a lot of economic output. There's over 1,500 mountain bikes sold annually in Omaha, which generate over $800,000 of revenue on an annual basis. And mountain bike sales continue to be the growth spot. And so I did pull some economic numbers there just for what recreation activity does in Nebraska. And you can see it employs quite a few people, and the total economic output for outdoor recreation activity is over 60 million. So there's a lot of things to go in that when we drill that down to the impacts of mountain bike tourism. The Midwest economies are already seeing this. There's links to a couple of articles here that I put within the documents that we gave you. One's in Duluth, Minnesota, and how it's really saving their local economy there in mountain bike tourism, and also down in Bentonville, Arkansas. And they've made a real big push, and that's where some of these statistics that you see on the side come about. But the average number of mountain bikers that take a trip is 3, and on an average weekend they'll spend just about $500 while they're in the community riding the trail systems and enjoying the local restaurants and breweries. The upside that it probably doesn't need a lot of conversation about, but it's the health impacts of it. I think the unique thing about a bike park is that in doing this, we will have an activity that families can do together. We have a lot of opportunities for kids to recreate in sports programs, but not a lot of opportunities for parents and kids to go out and recreate together. And this, as you'll see as we go forward, is probably one of the best things about the bike park in terms of who all gets to use it. This came from a study of local parks on how many people are getting out in the parks and being active. You can see that that's continuing to increase in the metro area over the last 4 to 5 years. And this was another one where they were asked how often they get out and use the trails, either paved or dirt, for walking, hiking, or biking. And that's been growing. At least 24% of the people get out weekly, which I thought was good to note. So for you who don't know what a bike park is, you may ask, we already have mountain bike trails at Swanson, so isn't that make it a bike park? What we're talking about is further developing the open green space that's not back in the trees, and developing that in such a way that if you're familiar with, let's say, a ski hill or even sometimes a skate park that has different features so people can work on different skills, that's what makes up a bike park. So we would propose to be using the open green space to put in things like free ride drops, pump track, flow trail, a lot of words that may be foreign to you. But to put a little pictures to it here for you, gateway trails are trails that gets young kids out as soon as they're off of training wheels and allows them to ride around and teaches them some basic balance skills as they learn to ride their bikes. That can progress into a pump track that's designed to where the riders can go around it. With the goal is to make it all the way around multiple times without pedaling. Again, it's teaching some skills that are important to mountain biking, but it can be built in a pretty small space. Flow trails are trails that go down a grade line that are cut and bermed in such a way that the rider barely has to pedal and can flow down a long section of trail. Skills areas are built to work with riders on balance and slow speed handling. So these are kind of overall where we're at in as we go forward in creating the Bellevue Bike Park. We've had a stakeholders meeting between trails. We've met with the Bellevue Parks and Rec. We've also met with Omaha Parks and Rec related to it. And what I'm here to do tonight is to ask you to pass a resolution for us to go out and raise the capital and design and implement a bike park in Swanson Park. With that, we ask for the long-term land use agreement be in place. As you guys are already aware, Bellevue leases the park from the city of Omaha. There's about 2 years left on that lease, and we would like to either see that lease renegotiated now for a 12-year venue or put in place a land use agreement with both Omaha and Bellevue in the event that they don't lease it again for some unknown reason, but I don't think that's, at least from what I've been told, not at risk. But for us, before we go out to the stakeholders and do the fundraising, because it's right now probably somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 project that we're looking to raise the capital for, and we just want to know that we have the city's blessing and permission to develop it, and then when we have it developed, that it can't be revoked a year or two in after we've made that investment. So that's what I'm here to ask for today. As once we get that, we go through to doing the detailed concept plans we'll have the city at the table with that to approve those plans, and then we go into fundraising. Once we have the funding, then we'd go into permitting and construction. So that's what the timeline would look like for us. The concept plan, again, neighbors, anybody in the city that wants to be part of it, the more input the better, and how we design it and the different things that get put into it. After that, we have a group that's called Trail Solutions that comes out and does a site review. They'll configure the zones for us, do a concept plan drawing of where everything will sit, and then they'll also, involved in that, we'll get the material and equipment estimates and timelines so we can know what all that will go in there from a capital standpoint. And then we go, and I say we in terms of Trails Have Our Respect, go into the fundraising mode. So the best question that I know you're all dying to ask is, where does the money come from? We've already been talking with foundations that are focused on kids' healthy activities, as well as private donors that are ready to put the seed money up to see this come to fruition. And then along with that, usually, as you guys know, with some of the grants, there will be some local match, and we'll look to raise that local, and some of that can even be the time and effort that the Parks and Rec put into to helping us with this, and in-kind donations will be recognized that way as well. After we get that, we go into the detailed design with the permittings, and then what we also do is we do professional training with our group, and we volunteer, get the volunteers organized and trained, and we work with the contractors to build the park. And then when we're done, the signage is put up, just as you would see at any other park, about what's there, the risks, and how to use the park properly. And then the programming, and this is the nice part. We already have this going on. We have the Devo Kids program already going on at the park. We already have adult skills programs going on at the park. Right now, just using kind of the natural terrain that's there without all of those features built in, but they're still able to hold those programs. And we also have competitions and festivals already going on at the park. So those parts will just get enhanced as we move forward, but that's our wish and our view, is that we can continue to hold these events, and we know that it'll attract more and more riders as the infrastructure gets built and is designed with more options than just the current 4.5 miles of dirt trail. So that's my ask, that we take Nebraska's first city and make it the first city to open a bike park in the state. And I think it's a really good PR opportunity for us as well, to make the city and the parks have a diverse use in our city parks that will attract a lot of younger generations. And from an employer standpoint, also being a local business owner, it's a great recruitment tool for us, for people that want to know why they should move and live here. It's because there's a lot of active things you can do, and this would add to that. So I'll end with that. I appreciate everyone's attention and time, and open to any questions you may have.
Mr. Shannon?
Yes, sir. The first thing I want to say is that I want to congratulate you on what you've accomplished already with the park,
Thank you.
and for a very ambitious plan. That would be an awesome thing to have in Bellevue, so this would be great for the whole city.
Thank you.
Setting aside the issue that we don't own Swanson Park for a moment,
Right.
okay? The other thing is that we don't have sidewalks at Swanson Park,
Right.
okay? It's up along Cornhusker.
Yep.
We've got developments going in up there. Are you willing to include putting sidewalks in along Cornhusker there as part of this project?
Yeah, you won't find a better advocate for that. You're preaching to the choir. In fact, there's a dirt trail if you ever are driving around down Cornhusker heading westbound, and you get to Cedar Island Road, and you look on the right-hand side all the way down to the park. It's been worn in from the bikers that are just riding down it already. So we would be a big fan, and however we can help make that happen. We believe the trail system, ultimately, the Keystone Trail system, should have connectivity to the park. There's some ways you can do it now with that aren't super expensive, but a few sidewalks would be the difference. and making that safe. And we want to make sure that the neighborhood kids can get to the park easily. And Cornhusker's a busy street, so if we have good sidewalks, and how we can fundraise for that, we can look for grants and recreational trail funding. But we'll definitely be happy to work with you to make that happen.
And for the city, is this part of the sidewalk redevelopment districts we're putting in right now? Does this fall within one of those?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so how would the city be participating with these guys if they're gonna raise all this money and do all this development in the park? What's the city gonna do for helping them get a sidewalk there?
I'm not quite following your question.
Are we doing something to help this come to fruition? I mean, are we scheduling to spend money here to put a sidewalk in, or what's going on there?
Well, this is the first this has come up. We haven't had any kind of meetings with Thor other than just with the parks, talking to them about their plans. But as far as us getting together to really finalize something, no, we haven't done anything yet.
That's something I'd like to see, come from this meeting, is that we move forward on those discussions so we can advance the sidewalks. That's something that's always important to all of us here in Bellevue, is that, especially a very public area like this, that we get sidewalks there.
Agreed, yeah.
All right. And for Mr. Sullivan, is it possible that we can go into negotiations and get ownership of Swanson Park with Omaha and the family and see if that's something that we can pursue at this time?
I have no idea. I mean, anything's possible, and, for the most part, fiefdoms are fiefdoms, and they're hard to give up, so I don't know.
Would you be willing to take a run at it?
Yeah, I didn't even know that it was owned by Omaha, so that's news to me. So, if I may just make a couple comments. This was sent to us just as a proposal, and typically, if we want a resolution passed, we'd have a prepared resolution ahead of time.
Okay.
And secondly, in that regard, we kind of want to nail down some positions that we're taking with that resolution, as opposed to just a carte blanche resolution saying, woo-hoo, this looks great.
Okay.
And so I think you probably need to work with the Parks Department and have them kind of put the parameters, and then have the Parks Department make a recommendation to us on
Okay.
a recommendation to the council with respect to the resolution.
Be happy to do that.
And then would you need an authorization from us tonight to make a run at this?
I don't think we do. I think they just contact the parks.
No, for you, to enter into negotiations to try to get us Swanson Park.
Oh, that would have to be a separate agenda item.
All right.
Mr. Manjaminette Malley?
Mr. McNeil, you've had discussions, you said, with Omaha.
Yes.
What's been their perspective on it?
They're on board with it. They were all. I talked with Dennis Briers, came to a meeting with myself and a few others from the city, and he's like, that's great. They're actually looking at potentially doing one at Tranquility Park in Omaha. And so he felt like there would be, we could easily get Omaha's blessing to use the park for the land use agreement. He wasn't sure about the long-term ownership and how that could play out, but they were on board with it. So they're.
And is there one that's been built close by that?
The closest that's of a city of our kind of size population would be Bentonville, Arkansas. And there's one further away in Boulder, and then Minnesota up in the Minneapolis-Duluth area has one as well. But we would be the first one kind of in this general kind of Missouri River Valley, if you will.
And do they, are there standards?
Yeah.
A lot of the different types of trails and things like that?
Yes, there are. So the IMBA Trail Solutions, which was the group that the professional contractor that comes out and does the surveying and design, they build these all around the country. And they're professional contractors. They do it for, a lot of times they'll build them on ski hills for summertime entertainment, but now they're building them everywhere because you can put them in any park. And Swanson's actually is really well for it because of the slope of the park. You don't have to haul in a lot of dirt. You can use a lot of the natural terrain. But there are professional standards, and from a mitigation of risk and liability, they hold up well. So.
And with those standards, I mean, this would be the first one in Nebraska. We found
Correct.
in several other projects that some people at the state level aren't as accepting, they don't understand, they haven't seen it. So if we've got something that's pretty close, we'll need to use that as a model that they can
Yeah.
see how the permits were done. Is there any ADA issues with this?
Not to my knowledge, but I can do a little deeper dive on that, but I don't believe there is. And I know that just for there's one other thing I failed to mention. Lincoln has a bike park process. They're at the capital fundraising stage, and they're working to create one on a landfill. So they've worked a lot with the city of Lincoln. So we know, at least so far, they haven't run into anything from a design and professional standard standpoint that's held them up. They're not in the construction phase yet, though. But we do contract out with professionals for that reason.
And is your resolution that you're asking for, is that to legitimize your asking of people?
Yeah, specifically the resolution would be that we could get a land use agreement for the park for a minimum of a 10-year period. So that if we put $250,000 into it, it doesn't become some other complex 2 years later because somebody else wants to change it. We want to be able to tell our funders that this is a protected investment. We have a runway on it that at least gives us 10 years for that type of investment, to use the park for that purpose.
Okay. As I see it, then we'd need to touch base with Omaha, obviously, and get that ball rolling. We'd need to get a functional or a feasibility analysis done as to what can be done. Is this going to impact the rest of the park and its use?
Well, the rest of the park is back in the trees. It will impact. There's a couple of ball diamonds there right now that are not used all that much, but Brian and I have been talking about that at the parks, and they don't see it would probably be the removal of those two ball fields because the way the park would be used. That would be the biggest impact we would have.
Okay. All right, so then, again, getting at least an agreement in principle with Omaha, getting some feasibility analysis done, and then we can work on a resolution. So, I mean, we're probably 4 to 6 months out.
Okay.
How's that fit with your timetable?
Well, our timetable is what, we of course would love to see it move a little quicker than that, but we don't have a deadline. Once we start fundraising, then I get a little tighter with the fundraising because I don't want that to drag on. But to get us to that point, we'll take the time that we need and do it right.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Preister?
Thank you. Kent, I appreciate the work you've already put into this, and it's going to be a real asset if we end up doing it, and hopefully the council will approve and we can work everything out.
Thank you.
One of the things that I think is important about your presentation is most people think of bikes as something kids do for a little while, and they outgrow, and that's it.
Right.
There's a much bigger economic impact. There's a much bigger health impact. And not only recreational bike use, but transportation bike use, which is what you talked briefly about in terms of being an advocate for sidewalks and safe routes. You've also been one of the founding members of our City Complete Streets Citizen Panel, which I thank you for.
Yeah, thank you.
And could you comment on the transportation or the other, you're not prepared, but the economic impact and also the military impact to the base for some of their health and fitness programs that our bicycle trails are providing in the city?
Yeah, I mean, I see it every day, and in my line of work, which relates to bicycle retail, all of that plays into the health and the vibrancy of a community and the attractiveness of especially millennial generations and younger they look at walkability and bikeability scores in the towns. And so I think our trail systems and what we have, if we can take these parks and our green spaces and get them connected with bike routes and safe routes for people to get to them without having to drive all the time, it just makes the community a lot more vibrant, a lot more healthy. And the park surveys that I kind of breezed over were kind of alluding to that too, is like, well, the more connectivity and the more safe routes we have to get to these parks, the more they get used. And so it's attractive from the military. We have people all the time that relocate here, and I had no idea I was going to sell my mountain bike. I'm coming from a mountain state or whatever, and they're pleasantly surprised that there's great opportunities right here in Bellevue, and that they can get to fairly easily. Not all of them can they ride their bikes to safely yet, but that's what we're working for. But it all plays together with the health and economic impacts and from an employer standpoint, recruitability. So.
And there is a national bike challenge that's done every year, and I believe Offutt has been winning that locally.
Yeah.
They use Fort Crook Road and some of our trails, I believe, if you could.
Yeah, if you hit the Keystone Papio Trail at about 5:36 a.m., it's amazing how many people are heading to Offutt on bikes, and then they jump off, like you said, and hit the bike lanes, and they can get onto the base safely, and that's why they have as many people commuting and in that challenge, as you say, and leading the country right now. Nebraska as a state's leading that challenge, which runs through the end of July, I believe. So.
And when people say they never see anybody on a bike riding, is it because they're just lollygagging on that bike, or are they moving so fast that you don't have time to see them?
Oh, I don't know. I can tell you it probably depends on the time of day and if they're paying attention a lot of times, which it's a whole nother topic of having those safe routes and those bike lanes with all the distracted driving. They're more important now than ever. So.
Safety is big. Helping youngsters to learn and do it off-road in bike parks and safe places with strong education and support from adults, family connectedness, all of those are excellent parts of this. So I commend you and the people you're working with for bringing it forward.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Our kids program is about 50% boys, 50% girls, and what we found, one of the unintended benefits after our first year is all the parents started coming to us and saying, we want to learn how to ride because little Sally or little Joey wants to take us out and show us what they learned. And so it became a family activity. And so and we know as the park allows us to teach those skills easier and safer and accommodate more kids, that will just continue to grow in the community. So I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'd like to make just a couple quick comments. I think this is a neat proposal.
Thank you.
And I look forward to our staff working with you and bringing back something that maybe will work for everybody. And just a quick comment. This is the first time we saw this presentation. Could you send it to our city clerk, Sabrina?
Yeah,
She
in fact,
distributed it to us.
I gave Brian USBs so you could all have
Oh.
it, but if he doesn't have those or somehow they got lost, I'll get it to you as well.
I
as
would just
backup.
like to go through your presentation and go to some of those websites.
Yeah, and there's another document on the USB, but I'll give to her that has all the links to all the economic studies and Bentonville's Parks and Rec program where they've put in a bike park. So there's a lot of information there if you want to do a deeper dive.
You bet. Any other questions or all right, well, thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
Item number 6, liquor licenses. Sorry.
Item A is Cross Strain Brewing Company. The application is for a special designated liquor license to serve beer at the finish line of the Beat the Heat event in Hayworth Park on August 12, 2017, from 7:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
Are you a representative?
Yeah, I'm with Cross Strain Brewing Company.
Could you state your name and then also
Oh.
sign in?
Okay, Josh Kozak.
Is there anything you would like to say
No,
before we
I
open
just
it up?
received a letter. I was supposed to come down here and answer any questions that anybody may have. I think they've completed the SDL application already. It just
Okay.
needs to be sent by the mayor to the state.
I'm going to open up for public hearing,
Okay,
and then if anybody here at the council has any questions, they'll
Okay.
bring them up.
that's fine.
Would anybody like to come forward and speak for or against this item? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public hearing. Mr. Manager Melly?
Josh, is this a 5-hour event?
Well, I don't think I'm not sure when I think I'll just be there at the end of the race. So I suppose they run for a few hours and then I'll be there. So I won't actually be serving for 5 hours, probably just a couple hours at the very end.
Okay, so, but it's just a morning in
Yeah,
the afternoon?
morning, and then the afternoon, then we're out of there, so we're not gonna be there too long.
Thank you.
Mr. Preister?
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Josh, when I see running, and having been a lifelong runner, I appreciate running. One of the things running does is dehydrate your system. One of the things alcohol does is dehydrate your system. We're talking an August 12th run day when the likelihood of, even early in the morning, it's going to be very hot, people are going to get dehydrated. This sounds like a recipe for disaster of people's health, and it concerns me as somebody who would vote to allow that to happen.
Right.
And so I would welcome your comment.
Actually, we're not gonna be serving people over and over. We're gonna just serve samples, like one sample per person if they wanna try it. It's more of a marketing for us to get our name out there and share our product than it is for like a festival where people are coming back and drinking it over and over again. We're not gonna get anybody drunk. So if they don't wanna drink beer, that's fine. If they wanna try our beer, that's fine. We're not gonna be handing out more than a few ounces to everybody that wants to try some beer that's of age.
I appreciate that it's a small amount.
Yeah.
Especially given the conditions.
Yeah.
Still concerns me having beer and running at the same time. I appreciate what you're trying to do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shannon?
Will there also be water available
Yeah,
for people at the finish line?
Yeah, there'll be plenty of water, and we also have a non-alcoholic beverage that we serve at our tap room that we'll bring as well, and people really enjoy. It's kind of a carbonated water product. It's really good too. We can bring that as well, but there'll also be plenty of water for everyone.
And what kind of medical staff is going to be present at the run?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm not part of the run at all, so anything having to do with the actual marathon, I'm not aware of.
Okay.
Just a quick question. One of the things, runners, they're likely not to have a purse or a wallet. How do you determine who's of age?
Yeah, they're gonna ID people as they come in, so if they don't have an ID, they won't be able to drink,
Okay.
so.
Anybody else have any further questions or comments? Would someone want to make a motion?
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion. I'm a little hesitant. This is the second one we've had where they want to serve alcohol at the end of it, but we have one event already occurring, I think, as a council. Maybe we get through the summer, and if we would prefer not to see these come to us, maybe we address it later, but I'm not quite sure why people want to run and then drink alcohol. I do a little running, but I'm going to make a motion. We'll see where it goes. I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the Cross Drain Brewing Company application for a special designated liquor license to serve beer at the finish line of the Beat the Heat event in Hayworth Park on August 12, 2017 from 7:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Yes, Sabrina?
Just so you know, this event was already approved. This is the same event, I think, that you're thinking of that was serving alcohol at the end. This is just the actual people who are doing the vending of
Okay.
it.
So we've approved the run and the use of the park. This is the alcohol side of it.
Right, exactly.
And, well, my motion dies for lack of second, so it is not approved.
Not approved. Okay.
Sir,
I'll
is
let
that
her-
correct?
All right, thank you for your time.
Yeah. The race is approved from a previous action of the council.
Right.
But the alcohol side of it is not.
Okay, very good. You guys have a good day.
Thank
Thanks for your
you.
time. If you ever get a chance, come out to the tap room and check it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7, ordinances for adoption, none. Item number 8, ordinance for public hearing, none. Item number 9, ordinances for introduction, first reading.
Item A is ordinance number 3878, adoption of the 2017 National Electric Code. This will have public hearing at the next meeting.
Sabrina, will you read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3878, an ordinance to amend sections 10-57 and 10-58 of Chapter 10 of the Bellevue City Code by adopting National Electrical Code 2017 edition, to repeal sections 10-57 and 10-58 of Chapter 10 of the Bellevue City Code as heretofore existing, to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form, and to provide for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. The public hearing meeting will be on July 24th, our next meeting. Mr. Shannon.
Mr. Manginelli, just a comment on this. In discussions among council members, I think there are some concerns as to how and when this implementation would take place. I would ask that meetings be scheduled so that we can sit down with you and discuss concerns on this item. And I know I would like to be there. Jim, do you have concerns on this one?
Yes, yeah. Be tough to get me the next 4 weeks.
All right, thank you.
Item B then is ordinance number 3879, creating sidewalk improvement districts, number 2017-1 to 2017-6 inclusive.
Sabrina.
Ordinance number 3879, an ordinance creating sidewalk improvement district numbers 2017-1 to 2017-6 inclusive in the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, ordering the construction of sidewalk improvements therein, and ordering the publication of the ordinance in pamphlet form.
Thank you. There will be a public hearing at our next meeting, which is July 24th. Item number 10, public hearing on matters other than ordinances.
Item A is a public hearing on the event license application of the Bellevue off at Kiwanis for Arrows to Aerospace events on August 18 and 19, 2017, including a carnival on Franklin Street on both days and the annual parade and activities in Washington Park on Saturday.
Thank you. Would you please state your name?
I'm Lloyd Dowding. I'm the president-elect of the Bellevue Off at Kiwanis Club. I was also the only one with a clean Arrows to Aerospace shirt, so that's why I'm here. I'm just here to answer any questions you might have pertaining to our annual event that we've been doing for the city for 20-some years now.
Well, I'll open up for public hearing, and then if anybody has any questions, you can respond to them. I'll open up for public hearing. Would anybody like to speak for or against this item? Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close public hearing. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Dowding? Do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion that we approve item 10A.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Shannon, seconded by Mr. Modry. Is there any discussion by the council? Seeing none, please vote. I vote yes.
All voted yes.
Item B is a public hearing on the proposed 2017 CDBG action plan, including fiscal year 17 allocation.
Hello, Abby. Would you please state your name?
Abby Highland. I am the CDBG Program Administrator for Bellevue. Tonight on the agenda is the public hearing for the 2017 Action Plan for CDBG funding. We published the plan and it was distributed in June. Since the plan was distributed, the only change that has been made is we were notified of our 2017 allocation for CDBG. And before that time, HUD told us to move forward with an estimate in order to meet all of our time requirements. So we were notified at the end of June that our 2017 allocation was $318,561 for the next year. At that time, none of the projects changed, just some of the amounts, and we published a new action plan and notice, and that's what's included in your packets tonight. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those. And tonight, it's just the public hearing. We'll take the comments from tonight and any comments made during the public hearing or during the comment period, and include those in the plan, and then we'll bring the final plan back to you on during the July 24th meeting for approval. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Mr. Preister?
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Abby, I appreciate the work from the Citizens Committee, the panel you put together, and all the input to this point. I think anybody can second guess and say where you tweak and where you move things around, but I think you did a very good job. I think it's exceptional. I would like to see us put more money for the city in sidewalks, but there isn't any more money there. I think everybody would like to see that. So I appreciate the plan, and I appreciate all the volunteers that helped you in doing it. So my thank you to you and them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Modry?
Thank you, Councilman Cook. Abby, I guess I have some questions on the economic development project for B&B Classic Dogs. I think the CDBG funds are primarily intended, correct me if I'm wrong, are primarily intended for maybe low-income areas or areas that may need development within the city. Is that in general correct, or?
It's one of their avenues. They have, CDBG program has 3 goals. It's to create a suitable living environment, economic opportunities, and housing.
Yes.
So those are the 3 goals, and they do focus on low and moderate income persons and households.
Right.
Could be citywide, it could be targeted. So yes.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not sure that the B&B Classic Dogs facility that they want to put in there really falls within the low and moderate income, or is primarily for the benefit of that group.
The way it qualifies under CDBG, it's because of job creation. It's going to create jobs for entry-level, low and moderate income individuals, and we'll have to track that and document along the way. So that's kind of how that is qualifying. It's not based on the area it's going in or who'll benefit in the end.
Yeah, and then I have questions as well on the project itself.
Okay.
You know, if it's been zoned for that type of facility, if it's large enough, if there's going to be enough parking, some of those kind of details, and maybe I'm jumping the gun on that kind of stuff, but I don't know.
I think there is someone here that can answer for us.
Just state your name, then sign in, please.
Diane Bruce, I'm one of the owners of B&B
Right.
Classic Dogs. Actually, we do not have, we spoke with Tammy Palm from the planning department. We don't have it rezoned, but they said it'll be an easy rezone. The issue we're having right now is finding out how the building will fit on the lot that we have, and we're working with OPPD because there is an easement there that we have to work with. So once we get down with the plot plan and the developers, then we'll be able to figure out how that building will fit. But it's gonna be about 10,000 square feet. There's already a access road on Harvell that was put in well before we bought B&B.
Right.
And that'll be able to allow traffic to come right through, but we'll be able to have a parking lot where the OPPD lines are. We can't have a building back there, but we can have parking back there. And then we also own the lot right in front of B&B that can also be made into a parking lot.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess my concern is if we're going to be allocating, you know, a third of our money, or a little more, for CDBG funding to something that may or may not come about, may or may not be approved, may or may not really work. So that's just my concern.
I understand your concerns. Just so you know, we're working with Bellevue University on their soccer programs and their golf program. They want to use our facility instead of going out into Omaha. As far as, and then Council Bluffs soccer program, various local programs are wanting to come in, and just outside the metro who want to come in and use our facility, because there is nothing like it within a close distance for them without having to drive into Omaha. But we do have 2 people designated that we'd be hiring, and it'd basically be doubling their income. Right now, they'd be considered low income by the status of the CDBG funds, and then we'll be hiring at least in what would be considered 20 FTEs, but it'd be closer to 40 part-time employees with that. So that's kind of how we qualified for the grant, but
Right.
And we've had a really good response from the community on what we're planning on doing.
Well, I think people are aware of my objection to taking this free money anyhow, with all the strings and everything attached.
And part of that is we have a significant matching fund to go with that. We were the only applicant that had matching funds, so that was part of the deal. Is one of the requirements with HUD is that they want the matching fund. So we're putting our life on the line to make sure this happens. So there's a huge effort on our part to make sure this happens.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mangiamelli?
Abby, in my experience with these kinds of projects in the past, Is there a contract that will follow? This is just the public hearing this evening, and these are the projects that have been recommended by the group, and you will follow up with contracts for these particular projects, and they'll have to meet all the zoning codes and everything else depending upon what kind of project it is. So there is no approval being sought tonight, it's just
Yes.
having the public hearing.
Yes. From here, the timeline from here really is the public hearing, approval by council. Once council approves it, it'll go to HUD. Once HUD approves it, they'll send a funding agreement. We'll do environmentals. Environmentals have to be done before we even do a contract with the subrecipient. And usually December, January, we'll sign a contract with them outlining all of the requirements they have to meet, all the city codes, zoning, and everything from there. And we review that with city officials, and then we go to the subrecipient with it.
So bottom line, there'll be a lot more information forthcoming on each
Yes.
one of these projects.
There will.
Mr. Shannon?
Who is setting the priorities for the use of CDBG funds that we're using this for this building project versus sidewalks?
Every 5 years, we do a consolidated plan, and during that consolidated plan, we outline the priorities for the city. And so during this last consolidated plan, economic development was one of our higher priorities. Our next 5-year plan we'll be doing next year, and it'll start in 2019. So during that time, we contact city officials, council, and start working on our priorities from there. So we'll all take the input and assign priorities from there.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'll just make one quick comment is I know that indoor facilities are in a demand. These soccer players, volleyball players, baseball players, there's a lot of different groups and organizations that are really begging for indoor facilities to have events, so. All right. Open it. I'll open up for a public hearing on the CDBG action plan. Please state your name and sign in.
Good evening. My name is Dwight Beaton, and first of all, I want to thank Councilman Mowdry and Councilman Shannon. Finally, some common sense. For the third year in a row, we have used the term economic development with a very, very broad brush. The first 6 or 7 years out of this, these projects were going to things that benefited a broad array of people, and you couldn't name, in any of those projects that were done the first years, you could not name the individuals, I'll bet, that benefited from that. Starting in 2015, we had a area real estate agent come forward wanting to put a new roof on his building. We used economic development as the catch-all for that, and we granted that gentleman $50,000. Nothing happened the first year. Nothing happened pretty much most of the second year. I saw a couple months ago that some money was released to him. And he said, well, I couldn't get it done because I'm having a hard time finding people that will handle that kind of glass and that roof. Well, the people who gave him the bid so that he knew how much to ask for in the request probably would have been the company to go back to and have do the work, I would think. Last year, we had a gentleman come in, Buckley Construction, to put a second story on a building that was a laundromat and put parking in. I drove by there tonight, thought maybe, I live over in Quail Creek on 42nd through 70. I thought, well, maybe I haven't been in this area very often, and I should stop down and see the chief sometime, but he's also out on Wall Street now. Anyway, so I said to myself, well, I'm going to drive by that and see if there's been any work done on that, and lo and behold, nothing's been done on it. So we're in a year now that you have $1.226 million requested, and you're getting $318,561 granted by the federal government, which it's not a money tree out in the backyard. This is federal taxpayer dollars. Every person in here that pays taxes, income tax, property tax, all that, it's money coming from there. This is not just money that grew up in a pot of gold. The federal government doesn't come up with money just out of the blue. So anyway, $318,561. Habitat for Humanity asked for $50,000, was granted $50,000. That's going to purchase 2 lots. The neat thing about that is when those lots sell and those prospective purchasers of those homes purchase the home, and make good on the payments and pay it off, that money goes back into other Habitat for Humanity projects, not into one business person's pocket. Public facilities improvement, the city of Bellevue requested $830,100, was granted $45,781 for curb reconstruction over in the Chandler Hills area. Straight off of Miss Highland's paperwork, that benefits 1,165 households from the low to moderate income census tract, okay? And if we take that and divide it by those 1,161 people, that's $39.29 per household that we're spending there. Rehab, housing rehab, rebuilding Together Omaha requested $100,000, was given nothing. What I read in the paper was they have not distributed enough of their funds from previous years. But there again, a great charity. They're going out and putting stoves in elderly people's homes, furnaces in elderly people's homes. Again, I don't know that any of us can say, well, Mrs. Smith over there on Warren Street got that furnace, but it's benefiting the Bellevue residents. A broad array of them, not one specific person. Public service category, Bellevue Junior Sports Association requested $8,000. They were granted $8,000. They are going to benefit 50 low to moderate income households with $160 scholarships, so that households that have the low to moderate underadvantaged kids can be in cheerleading, football, all of the things that Bellevue Sports Association does. Heartland Family Services, a great charity, asked for $62,929, was only granted $39,280. They're going to benefit 75 households, and we're spending $530 per person per household there. That's going to help our housing navigation services for the homeless and for battered spouses. Again, no specific person. Now we're on to economic development. Economic development, which is B&B Classic Dogs, has asked for $125,000. Was given $125,000 under the auspices and the decoy of economic development, and this will make it so that these kids don't have to leave town and go out to play and practice. This is a business that is adding this business to their business and is going to charge admission. The reception from the public already, it's been on a GoFundMe site. I did some Facebook sleuthing today. Been on a GoFundMe site for a little over a month since this came out. I did try to contact my council person, and he didn't get a chance to call me back. He's a very busy gentleman, I understand, so I'm sorry that he's being surprised by this evening, or he would have known of my opposition to this sooner. Some points you read that it'll add 20 part-time jobs. Sometimes you read that it'll add 40 part-time jobs. It just depends on where you read it. But we are basically putting $125,000 in the pocket of a business person that is taking $125,000 worth of risk off of it. I guarantee you that the gentleman who opened the sushi place in the old Godfathers would have loved to have had $125,000 of his risk taken off of his business. I guarantee you Big Mike, who has Big Mike's Barbecue up in Mr. Shannon's building on Galvin Road, I'm sorry, I don't know whether I can answer or can mention names or not, but he doesn't have a fryer in his building because of the code regulations and the requirements and what it would have cost him to put in a fire suppression system. I talked to the gentleman. So he serves chips with his barbecue. But no, anyway, I guarantee he would have loved to have gotten $125,000 just handed to him that took it off the top of his expenses. Now, this GoFundMe project that's been set up, there's been 4 people that have donated $175 in that month. That's how well received this is by the citizens of Bellevue, saying, hey, we'll get behind you and throw some money that way too. Request funds for, under this group are to assist with land acquisition, parking, building installation, and equipment associated with the construction of an indoor practice facility, baseball, softball cages, indoor soccer practice facility, and a golf simulator will be included if there's enough money raised. Here's the problem. I did a little more sleuthing on a wonderful website called sarpycounty.com, where you can find out who owns properties. The properties that we're talking about up by Classic Dogs B&B, Classic B&B Dogs, whatever the name of it is, are owned by Sharves Contracting, which also owns B&B Classic Dogs. So the land has already been purchased from a gentleman named, I think you guys will know Mr. Edquist, and I'm pretty sure you'll know Mr. Gilbert. They sold the land, both of these lots. We're talking lot 1, lot 3, and lot 5. And it takes a lot of sleuthing because there's nothing under Bruce for that. There's nothing under B&B Classic Dogs. And here's a name you're going to recognize, and I found out this morning that it made me feel a little better, at least, that the person that was that I was going to mention tonight's not on the commission anymore, on committee anymore, and that is Sharv's contracting with Jerome Sharva. Jerry Sharva is the person who's also a partner with this group. So what you've got is you got Sharv's contracting, Jack Sharva, who used to be on this commission, and I was hoping for sure, and he didn't let me down. He wasn't on the commission anymore. But ironically, we had a discussion 2 years ago when Rusty Hike wanted to do his roof on the building, and that was that, hey, you know, the thing is, your son went out with the other partner, and they built B&B Classic Dogs, and they didn't ask for no cash from the federal government or in a grant. How things come full circle in the city of Bellevue. 2 years later, I opened my paper in June, and sure enough, they're asking for that. I'm going to go ahead and finish up. Thank you for giving me the thing. The last thing that I have a little bit of a problem with, and I'm hoping that you guys will make a decision on this. Maybe you can't do it this year, but for the second year in a row, under 12B, which is coming up, I realize it's tied to this, but it's not exact.
Right, you can't.
Okay, so I won't do that. Just under the administration, for the second year in a row, we are sending $50,000.
Again, that's not an agenda item that we're on right now.
It's on administration and planning, $50,000 allotment.
But what item?
This item, 10B.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
part of your.
I
Yep.
see the bottom one. Yeah, let's.
So
wrap it up.
for 10B, for the second year in a row, and I realize this is nothing against Miss Highland, she's a great person, but we are doing economic development for Edwards, California, the city of Bellevue is, by sending $50,000 worth of payroll in an independent contractors agreement out to there, where the house payments, the taxes, the gas stations, the restaurants, all of those things are thriving out in Edwards, California, on Edwards Air Force Base. But we need to basically realize we can probably hire a person, we should be able to hire a person in this city that lives in the city and is going to put that $50,000 that they're getting in salary back into the
Right.
Bellevue economy
Thank
instead
you.
of passing it on to Edwards, California. So
Thank you.
hopefully you can pull that about.
Would anybody else like to speak on this?
Chuck Frederick, 1511 Madison Street. We need him on the council, I'll tell you that right now. My question is that, did Rusty Hike get that money for the roof, or is it still pending? Just wondering where that money is.
Abby, would you be able to answer that? Or Rich?
Well, it's not part of the 2017 plan, but the work has been, I talked to the contractor today, it's gonna be done this week.
Thank you.
So he's gotten the money already then?
No.
Well,
Okay.
Rich?
I just need to clarify a couple things as far as the purchase of the property, and I'm not sure where all you got your information, but we purchased B&B Classic Dog Building from Dykob, which was owned by Mr. Martin. It has nothing to do with Jeff Renner or Keith Edquist. We purchased the two other lots from Keith and Jeff Renner for $110,000. We're still in the process of making those payments also. Sharv's Contracting owns the land, and they own the building for B&B, but they will also own the land for the new building, or we will end up buying it, depending on how we word with Abby and the rest of the council on how it's supposed to be, the transaction is supposed to transpire. So there is a plan, it's just not exactly what he's saying. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Dan Banky, 3309 Leewood. Just two things. First of all, you've got a great bargain with Abby, and everybody should be aware of that. Regardless of where she lives, she does fabulous work, and she's the continuity of this program that we have. Why I really came here tonight was really just to talk just for a second on the fact is I've been honored to be on this CDBG group for the last several years. One of the things that I've really struggled with, especially the last 2 years, has been with the proposal that the city of Bellevue has put forward. It's been a multi-$100,000 project, and it's kind of like stick a piece, here or there. It would really be good if we could get something sized, not bigger than what the allocation is, so that we could really sit there and do an apples to apples to do it. Otherwise, we're just putting money into a much bigger project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banky.
David D. Anson, 1001 Bellevue Boulevard South. And I am just up Jewel Street from this proposed development. I don't have any qualms with the economic issues. I have qualms with the actual site. I have reconnoitered that area just recently, and I have been aware of that area for a long time, since I've lived here 20 years. And the site is, quite frankly, not equipped to handle large amounts of traffic. If they're talking about just the one entrance off of Lincoln, that is probably not going to handle much traffic. You could put a entrance on Harbell. I don't know whether the city has plans for that. Basically, if you're going to build an indoor athletic facility, which I am familiar with as a former coach, you're going to have a lot of drop-off driving vehicle traffic. And that drop-off vehicle traffic, as any grade school principal can tell you, it can be extensive. And of course, the police chief could weigh in on that too. So that's going to be a problem with the neighborhood. As you probably know, the library is located right across the street from that entryway. And there is a very busy intersection, Harbell and Lincoln and Jewel, that all come together in that area. There also is a large traffic problem because of Bellevue East and its athletic facilities that are located along Lincoln Road. So I think if you really think about that, cramming in an indoor athletic facility in this small area, and it's actually a fairly small area, I don't know if it makes any sense, particularly when we have lots of available land in Bellevue. Maybe if they really wanted to develop something, maybe they could do something in conjunction with the baseball or the ballpark development south of Bellevue. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? I'll close the public hearing, and this will come back in front of the council in 2 weeks for a vote.
No.
No?
She brings it.
It'll come
Okay,
back
when
as
you bring it back.
individual projects.
Okay. So no vote?
No votes necessary.
All right. Item number 11, resolutions, none. Item 12, current business.
Item A is acceptance of and authorization for the mayor to sign the proposal from Polonsik Construction for the demolition and removal of debris from the structure at 2815 Margot Street in the amount of $9,500 to be paid from community betterment funds.
Mr. Preister?
Thank you, Councilman Cook. I move to approve the acceptance of and authorization for the mayor to sign the proposal from Polonsik Construction for the demolition and removal of debris from the structure at 2815 Margot Street in the amount of $9,500 and to be paid from our community betterment funds.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Preister, second by Mr. Burns. Is there any discussion? Mr. Shannon?
This is based on the prior council vote to condemn and move forward with the demolition of this property.
That's correct.
And that was based upon the word of Mike Christensen. Is that correct?
Mike Christensen presented the proposal that the council adopted.
Okay. Based on testimony in court last week, Mike Christensen testified that he has nothing but a high school education and is not qualified to be.
This is not germane to the discussion,
It is
please.
germane to the discussion because it exposes the city to a liability. All right?
Let me clarify, it's not germane to the discussion because the vote had already been made by the city council. Had that, what you brought up, been brought up during the condemnation process, that may have been something to be considered. At this point, that vote is already completed.
At this point, my comment is that we may need to slow down and find a competent, qualified person to give us an opinion on this property, since we obviously don't have a chief building inspector that's qualified.
Mr. Preister?
In response to that, we didn't make a council decision just based on the condition of the electrical or the structure. We based our decision as a council, I believe, and I did certainly, in looking at pictures, in seeing the condition of the property, in seeing it presented by our chief building inspector, who I happen to respect, no matter the level of education. But I had also personally met with the owner of that property. I had been on site. I had been to the house more than once, and I based my decision on the condition of the property, and it needs to be torn down. So this vote is to reaffirm what we already did, and that vote was based on the condition of the property that we all saw in pictures
And video.
and video.
Any further comments? I'd like to make one comment. This is my 5th year on the council, and every dealing I've had with Mr. Christensen has been professional. I respect him, and I trust him, and I trust his judgment. We can talk about levels of education, but also years of experience plays a big part of this. We, the council, make the decisions. He presents them to us. So I have full support and confidence in the work that Mr. Christensen does for the city. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I've already made the motion.
Oh, that's right. No further, okay, then please vote. I vote yes.
All voted yes.
Item B is approving the renewal of the CDBG independent contractor agreement with Abby Highland. Mr. Severson, would you like to address the council on some of the issues that were brought up earlier?
Rich Severson, Finance Director. The CDBG program reports to me, and I'm fortunate to have the resource Abby Highland. She was a full-time employee here. The military called her family away, and we were lucky to work out a deal where we tried a scheme, a contract that Abby said she would go ahead and try to administer the program. And what we did over this last year was we maintained a very high level CDBG program with Abby agreeing to do the work and to travel periodically. Over the last year, we paid Abby in a consulting contract, I think it's $26,884, and we paid about $6,000 of travel expense. So we could, I heard earlier, we could pay someone $50,000. I'd rather be a conservator of the taxpayers' money more than that. So anyway, I went back and looked after this last year of the program and how this was working out, and it was working very well. So I went back and calculated what we would be paying Ms. Highland if she were still working here on an hourly rate, and it was over $37 an hour. So I propose, in order to keep that resource, that we renew that contract but increase the rate from $30 to $37. I know that that looks like a 23% increase. You might want to look at it this last year. We got a 19% discount on a very good resource. We also went out and we got a quote from other qualified CDBG administrators, and those quotes came in at $62 an hour. I'll let you ask any questions you want, but I highly recommend that we get Ms. Highland on board for another year.
Mr. Maudry.
Thank you. Rich, you mentioned we could hire somebody for $50,000, you suppose, but that $50,000 that's allocated isn't just for Abby's salary, right? Or her contract, but there are also other administrative costs and work that you do and people within your department also do that feed into that $50,000.
Well, the $50,000 I think was roughly what what one person would be
Yeah.
making. But yes, there's other costs. However, Ms. Highland keeps those overhead costs to a minimum because she knows this program so well. She presents me with information that's turnkey. You heard her articulate some of the particulars of the program earlier.
I guess you mentioned being a steward of the taxpayers' money. I cannot justify a 23 1/3% increase.
Mr. Shannon?
Yeah, I think on a percentage basis, when people are getting 2% and 3% raises, asking for 23 is a bit much. I understand the value of the resource and what you're saying. Has a negotiation taken place? Is this the amount being offered or the amount being asked?
Both, because I think it's a fair price for the resource. I did the work, and you're going to pay that or more. If you say no to this contract, I suppose there's a chance that Ms. Highland would take something less, but if she doesn't, you might be in a little bit of a predicament explaining why those costs increased so much. But if that's the wishes of the council, that's what we can do.
I'm just confused as to the process that was used here. I mean, you calculated this and came up with this number and presented us a contract, but I mean, it just seems like there should be an authorization and, you know, a range, and you should negotiate with her.
Time that people can buy it, they can still have the same length of time to buy it. But I think it would be a good thing to do, because Mr. Prester talked about the veterans, and we're a veteran city. He talked about the animals, and when I ran for city council, way back, Fred was my campaign manager, golden retriever. He was scared to death of fireworks. We had to medicate him. He would go through a closet wall in order to try to hide. So it was really pretty bad. Fortunately for now, for ourselves, we have a dog, soft-coated Wheaton Terrier, who she isn't scared of fireworks. She'll look out the picture window and bark at the fireworks that are up in the sky. So altogether different. But most dogs, a lot of dogs are afraid of the fireworks. So I just kind of hope that we can maybe cut down on the time that we actually shoot the fireworks. I think that would be one way of solving it to a degree. Maybe not the great solution, but at least it would cut down somewhat. Then I also talked about the dog park too, and in the past, and we had the one at Jewel Park is one where people come. They come from all over. So you come from Omaha, Ralston, Papillion, La Vista. They come to this dog park at Jewel Park. Beardmore has another one, but I think we really should need another dog park that the city should be able to have. It would be over somewhere in the southwest part of Bellevue, but it's a great place for families to come and dogs to come, and it would certainly be, I think Mr. Hanson said he's not here, but it does actually make the properties around the dog park more valuable. I also noticed he talked about the guy with the trails, but I noticed that also a lot of people come down to Jewel Park with their bicycles and ride there too, and they're not all from Omaha. So I'm not sure what kind of trails they have there, but there are numerous times bicycles there. The other thing is one of these days, a couple more weeks, I'll be able to have regular glasses so I can see. Mr. Shannon, I want to congratulate you on finding yourself not guilty on the last thing you had to do with the electrical thing, and it's unfortunate that the next day. It's unfortunate the next day the paper appears that somebody's going to try to recall you, and that's ridiculous. they were saying it's not political. It is political. I was recalled, when I was the city council, they tried to recall me. They vilified me. They went after my wife who had cancer. There are some nasty people in this city. Most people are really nice people in Bellevue, but there's some nasty people. The ones against me, a lot of them are dead now, but still, there are people here who, for some reason, will cause more problems than, and you've done a great job on the city council. What bothers me is that with your expert in business, why they stopped the budget committee, why they canceled the budget committee, and why you're not on the audit committee. Those are two things you should be on. There's no doubt about that.
Mr. Frederick, would you bring it's been over 5 minutes, would you bring this to a conclusion?
Right, I'm almost there, but I can also request another 5 minutes too, by the way, you know that. But I'll try to, so I'm just gonna say that what bothers me is that, and I've talked about monthly balance sheet, I've talked about having the state auditor come down. There's been a lot of organizations in the state and other cities where auditors have come in and have found
Mr. Frederick, we've heard this from you several times, so just tell us something new and come to an end, please.
You could keep on hearing until you have the state auditor come down and do his job. Why are you afraid to have the city auditor come down? I mean, the state auditor come down and do the job. That's all. I mean, for some reason you're so fearful of that. I don't understand that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hello, my name is Dwight Beaton again. I was going to speak a little more on the agenda item from earlier, but you know what? I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't want to leave here this evening without first thanking the city of Bellevue, and on a positive note, the street department and whoever picked up all the trees. But the 16th of July, we had that terrible tornado. I don't know that I benefited directly from the picking up by the trucks. We had all our stuff hauled to the city dump, which was a quite nice thing to have a place to get rid of 12 pickup loads full of trees out of my own yard. I live in Quail Creek and we got blasted. Not as bad as some areas like Two Springs and Normandy Hills and Haida Hills. But I do appreciate that. They came through. They said they're going to start on Tuesday, and I think they were through our neighborhood Wednesday or Thursday. And I'll tell you, when I was running loads down to Hayworth Park after they closed the Rose Lane dump, those guys were tired. They were down there working. There was a guy down there with a backhoe that was crunching it all together. There were people directing and observing. And what that meant was, I mean, I'm realistic enough to know that they weren't getting their other work done. And they were working probably some overtime and some time away from their families. So I want to thank the city for that. But I also want to bring up a kind of a fun thing that I did with one of our councilmen. And I think he knows this. I was talking to my wife and she said, nah, don't do it. I was talking to my mom and she said, no, don't do it. But I offered a challenge to...
Trust your mother. And
I beg your pardon?
Trust your wife and mother.
No, I don't know. My mom was worried that I was going to get taken away for attempted bribery. And I was like, it's not bribery, it's a challenge. So about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, one of our councilmen was concerned about an agreement that the city was making with Liberty Land LLC up in the Liberty development behind Quail Creek to place dirt on what will someday, hopefully, and I hope so also, will be a city park. His fears were alleviated, I think that's a word, by the city attorney who said that the contract was cancelable at any time. He was concerned that we were going to be covering city parkland for up to 10 years with soil, and we would be getting $5,000 a year from the developer. And the fears were allayed, I guess is what I'm looking for, by the county or the city attorney pointing out that it's cancelable at any time. So what I did was I shot a quick email. I stayed up that evening after watching that. I didn't get down, so I watched it on Channel 17, and I shot a quick email to Councilman Preister. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for mentioning his name. And I'm going to offer that same challenge to you folks. And it read, and I think I can kind of remember, it read, if on the, I'm going to change it to July 10th because that's today, July 10th, 2027, which would be 10 years from now, the city has placed a park on the Daniel Farm property, which they purchased years and years and years ago. I, Dwight Beaton, will donate $250 to each one of the councilmen, and I'm even going to open it to the mayor, even though she's not here tonight, to their favorite charity. Okay? If by July 10th of 2027, there is no city park place there. Each one of the people who accept my challenge, each one of the council people and the mayor, I'm going to open it to her, will donate $250 to my charity of my choice. I did that challenge with the following in mind. Number one, I, as John Q. Public, have no bearing or ability to determine where parks go in or whether or not they do go in. But you, as city council people and the mayor, are the movers and shakers of this city and do have the ability to determine where a park goes, when it goes, and all those things. I have no knowledge. You guys have the knowledge because you were involved in the meetings. You know what's in the pipeline. I do have to admit, Mr. Preister, this was a jab at our age. One of the things I put in there was that at our advanced age, that maybe we should make this agreement something that our estates would honor. That's probably what my wife was against. I mean, it was just a little jab. And then I felt that we needed some criteria on how we would determine if there's a park there, and that's where I'm going to put out this invitation to you. The criteria that we'd use for our challenge is that there is an area where kids have play equipment in that park in the Daniel Farm area, or better yet, where you and I and any of our families and the mayor, if she wants to join the challenge, can meet for a picnic lunch. And I'll actually bring fried chicken and all the fixins and everything. So basically, if you want to accept this challenge, I'm in the phone book, I'm on the internet, everybody knows where I am. I was turned down by the illustrious councilman that I'm mentioning, who said that he wasn't a betting person. But as I pointed out to my mom, this is not a bet, it's a challenge. A bet is like when you bet on a horse and don't have control of the outcome. But you guys have control of the outcome. You could put a park there within the next 10 years. So anyway, I'm in the book. Give me a call if anybody wants to take that challenge. There could be charities benefit in one way or another, and who knows, Bellevue may get a park over in the southwest side of Bellevue. Thank you for your service, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
I salute the creativity, Dwight.
Dave Anson again. I'm addressing this issue for my neighbors that have brought it to my attention, and particularly my wife and my dog. I am a combat veteran, and the last 10, 12, 15 days have been extremely traumatic for much of our neighborhood, although I could not find a neighbor within a block of me that set off fireworks. Now, my neighborhood is mostly elderly. That means close to my age. So that's a big issue. It really is an issue for Bellevue to address. And what I would like to suggest is a closer time period, and maybe a place where the people that have these large fireworks, because now they have half-stick dynamites, I've been told by my former students, those have no business within a neighborhood, particularly a neighborhood that has children and animals and wild animals. And of course, it does put a tremendous amount of pollutants in the air. The thing is, if you really want to know the attitude towards the Bellevue public on this issue, put it to a referendum. I'll guarantee you it would. I mean, fireworks would be banned if it was left to a majority vote, because the people who vote are old, and the people that put fireworks out are young and, quite frankly, probably don't vote. Well, thank you very much. But let's consider this in the next year. It is a really important issue.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brian Hanson, 2704 Georgia Avenue in Bellevue. A couple of topics I'd like to talk about. First, the presentation about the bike park tonight. Wow, I was impressed. I hope that this takes off and runs with it. I would think with a regionalized law enforcement training, that would also maybe be a source of funding and also a training site to, if there's no others in the area, I would think that would be certainly where one of the courses or whatnot is taught. The agreement about sidewalks with the church, I certainly hope that you bring the church back in to get their view of it. I also like Mr. Mangiamelli's idea of going through November of that construction season and stuff. think he mentioned November 30th, but, you know, an arbitrary date is September to November, and also realize I don't speak for the church. I do know the gentleman, Mr. Birchfield, who presented the church's view, and I've known him for 30 years. He's a man of his word. These triggers, if they are launched, the church likely doesn't have this money just sitting aside waiting to go and stuff too, so I would hope that there would be some leeway or some time that would be put into effect before this takes effect, not saying 2 weeks from now you don't meet code, so you need to have your sidewalks installed. I don't think would work with that. Also, I would memorialize the specifications of the sidewalk. We had a change in 4 feet to 5 feet occur during this process. I would certainly memorialize that in your agreement while you're at it. Fireworks, 10 days is a third of a month. It's too long. I would suggest that the city get on board with the other communities in the area and come up, maybe through MAPPA, but come up with a unified idea of sales and launching times and things like that. So, to me, and I don't mean to be the old man, but maybe I am, the selling from the 30th of June and concluding the 4th of July, that midnight seems to me to be reasonable, and certainly the things that we're seeing and hearing are what I used to know in my younger times and launching fireworks that I did as commercial grade stuff. And it's a dangerous thing to see small children like I have in my neighborhood, you know, be encouraged to put a lighted source to that firework, and maybe not fully, you know, maybe it's not their parents' best show. Article in the World Herald about the World Baseball Village, and I know you're going to talk about it in the next item and stuff, but I would suggest that any financial considerations that are made to the World Baseball Village be done in the form of a loan, and that be attached as a lien to that property that they own. I see some good coming out of it. It's unfortunate that they had the tornado impacted them to a significant event. That's what special event insurance is for, and event insurance is for. And hopefully they took that out, but if they didn't, I would recommend the city taking and investing any more into this until we see what's going to happen with it. I made a suggestion to my council members. I don't understand why Bellevue University is playing baseball out along Interstate 80 and 84th Street at Westgate Village and stuff. I would think that would be a prime source of predictable funding, of bringing outside teams here to this, and I would encourage you all to encourage the World Baseball Village to pursue this complex, if it's rebuilt or remodeled, to host the Bellevue University home activities instead of the freeway out there in West Omaha. Thank you very much. I appreciate the storm damage recovery and response by the city. I think it was really good, and I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? I'll close the public request to be heard. Item number 15, closed session. Contract negotiations with World Baseball Village. Mr. Burns?
I move that the city council go into closed session at this time for protection of the public interest. The subject matter to be discussed in closed session shall be contract negotiations with World Baseball Village. The following individuals will be included in the closed session. Attending closed session will be Pat Sullivan, our city attorney, Joe Mangiamelli, our city administrator, Rich Severson, our finance director, Tim Buckley, Jim Shada, and Jeff Roberts and Larry Burks.
Do you have a second? Do you need Rich?
Yeah, Rich is on the list. We'll get him.
Second.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Burns, second by Mr. Modry. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. I vote yes.
All voted yes.
Thank you. The city's going to go into closed session at this time for the protection of the public interest. The subject matter to be discussed in closed session shall be contract negotiations with World Baseball Village. The following individuals will be included in closed session. Attending the closed session will be Pat Sullivan, city attorney, Joe Mangiamelli, City Administrator, Rich Severson, Finance Director, Tim Buckley, Jim Shada, Parks Department, Jeff Roberts, Public Works Department, and Larry Burks.